Market mashup. Build for growth in the GTA. So who's ever heard of these people before? The Build, no? So Build is the Building Industry and Land Development Association. They're kind of like the, you can use many names for them. One name would perhaps be like a cheerleader for builders and developers. They're there, or they exist to kind of help close the gap between, say, the builders, developers, and the local municipalities, and kind of like us, perhaps the consumer or just the people, right? So they're there to kind of close that gap and help with the information and digest it and along the like. So we know that the Ontario government has mandated a lot of all the municipalities to grow. So they've also looked at these numbers and kind of shed some light on it, and we're going to look at some of the stuff here. So we know that by 2041, the GTA in this, when I'm talking about the GTA here today, is basically from Durham region to Peel, Toronto, and all the way up to Simcoe region, okay? So we're to grow to 9.7 million by 2041. New residents per year. This is happening right now. This is no surprise because we've been talking about this for a long time. Every year in the GTA, 115,000 people show up. That's like the city or the town of Newmarket every year. Boom, another new Newmarket. Say that 10 times fast. Another new one, right? So that's a lot of people moving into this area. To keep up with that demand, you can see here, we need 50,000 homes per year just to keep up with that demand. Who wants to take a guess on how many new homes were built or how many new units were built in 2017? Knowing that we need 50,000. Any ideas there?
25.
25. What else we got?
30.
38,000. Still a shortfall, right? So people wonder why are the GTA home prices so much? Well, that perhaps it's not going to be the leading reason, but that's certainly going to be a reason, right? And we're going to look at some other reasons why the home prices are as high as they are in the GTA. Let's look at some of the economics behind this. So new home construction, housing starts, over 40,000 housing starts, almost 41,000 housing starts. Hey guys, come on in. In 2017, let's look at some of these numbers. That's $17 billion worth of new real estate. This is the cool part. Created 120,000 jobs and created $7.1 billion worth of wages because people were building those new homes. Flip over, and if you were doing home rentals, $16 billion was invested into home rentals. That created 150,000 jobs, or $9 billion. Those are big numbers, really big numbers. You know what I can share with you here, though? That's down from the previous year. As big as that looks, that's down from the previous year. And as big as this is, I share this because real estate is such a key component to the economics around the GTA in Canada. You can just see by the sheer numbers, and that went down the previous year, right? So it went down. 2016, on the Toronto Real Estate Board, we had a record high 116,000 sales. Highest ever. Last year, 2017, it went down to 92,000. Still a big number, right? However, that's 24,000 less sales. The other thing the Toronto Real Estate Board will tell you is, as well, the average home sale in the GTA will generate $60,000 into the local economy. So I did the math, right? So if we had 24,000 less sales times 60,000, that's $1.4 billion that didn't get added to this. That's a lot of people not going out to Home Depot or buying new furniture, new appliances. That's a lot of income that just stayed in people's pockets because they didn't sell, right? Development charges. So development charges are what municipalities will charge a new builder or a builder to build a house, okay? And for every house that's built, whether you build one house or 400, the local municipality will charge you a development fee. And here we can see, so this bottom kind of purple line here, that's the rate of inflation since 2004 up to this year, 2018. This dark purple line is how much some of the development charges have increased since that time. Big, big numbers, okay? Now, sometimes it's okay when it goes up that high, because at places like just north of here, like north of Green Lane in East Gwillimbury, they went from a little, call it hamlet, of say 4,000 people to really 15,000 people. The infrastructure wasn't there. We needed to build infrastructure. So you can kind of see how sometimes it needs to go up high really fast, but who pays for that? We do, right? I'll share with you some numbers that, actually right now, this slide right here, this is the first time I've ever seen this. This is incredible. I know it might be tough to see what all this is. Single family home, if you were to buy an average single family home in Markham of about just over $1 million, you're paying $220,000 in government fees. So another reason why perhaps the home prices are so high, right? 200,000, almost 20% of that is just going to the government. Now, what does that get broken down to? Development charges, application, like building permits, parkland dedication, property tax. Some of it's going to be CMHC fees, HST, land transfer, and other. We always talk about land transfer tax being kind of a cash grab. I say it's only, but it's only 9% of that whole pie there, right? A lot of it is development charges and the HST. This pie chart here is condos, so $160,000 of the price of the is going to government fees. So red tape. You might have heard builders talk about this. There's so much red tape in getting our properties to a point where we can go build and sell, right? And a lot of a lot of builders have said, if we can just remove some of that red tape or some of the policies that are in place, so we can go get our developments built. Because what happens is it gets bogged down, right? There's bylaws and procedures in place that governments have, your local municipalities, and it just slows the whole process down. So in fact, some builders will tell you that it takes almost 10 years to hand the keys over to their new buyer. From the time they go start planning in the planning stages to the time that they give the keys away. That's a long time, right? And so if we could shorten that, the builders are saying, if we could shorten that, we get more product out there, which in turn really should bring that pricing down or balance it out a little bit, right? Okay, so we're going to look at 3 regions: York, Durham, and Simcoe. Okay, real quick here. Local snapshot of each. So 2 years ago in York region, we're sitting at about 1.1 million people in population. By 2041, we're going up to almost, call it 1.8 million. So a lot of growth here still, lots and lots of growth. The economic engine, new home builds last year were 4.3 billion. That is the value of it. Home renovation, not far behind. Well, $1 billion, but not far behind. 3.2 billion. That's still a lot of money, right? Going into, I was part of that stat last year. I did an addition on my house. Again, so that created almost 24,000 jobs, 1.4 billion in wages. You can see it here, 18,000 jobs for home rentals, 1.1 billion. So York region is bigger than a lot of cities right across Canada, and even in Durham as well. You'll see it. So we talked about those government fees or the development fees. About 18% of your purchase price for a brand new home is going right to, shouldn't say that, but that's the way I'm saying it, going to the government, all right? Condos, it's about 30%. It's actually higher. Durham's next. Durham is going from 645,000 to, call it 1.2 million people in the next 20 years. New home construction is 1.4 billion and 1.3 billion in home rentals, 7,800 jobs, 460 million in wages. Big numbers, right? 8,000 jobs in home rentals, 473 million in wages. A lot of people rely on us hiring them to do rentals, right? And, cost to homeowners, about 24.5% of government fees. That's part of the purchase price. So a quarter of the purchase price in Durham is going for specific government fees, right? Big numbers. I knew it was there, I just didn't know the numbers. Now, this is the first time I've ever actually looked at these types of numbers, was today. 18% for the condos. Simcoe. Simcoe's going from about, call it 480,000, and in the next 20 years, 800,000. I have a feeling it's going to be more than that. Wouldn't you say, Ian, it's going to go up much more than that, the Barrie area, Simcoe area?
Hugely growing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be higher. $2 billion in new home construction, 1.5 in home rentals, 13,000 jobs, almost 800 million here, 11,000 jobs, and 652 million in wages. Again, like huge, people are leaning on the construction world or home rentals for their income, right? For sure. Cost of homeowners, 20% and 16%. So not as high as Durham. There you go. There you go. That was kind of enlightening to me, like seeing how much the government is charging the builders, which means those builders end up charging the end user, right? Always will. We'll always be the ones that pay for it. And people wonder why home prices are so much. So that home in Markham, what did we say? It was 240,000, I think it was. The average home in Markham, that's what, our new home, that's what the fees are going to the government. So you know, that's like $60,000 more than my sister-in-law bought a brand new 2,000 square foot house in Louisville. Like, it's the States, they do things differently there. And I said to them at the time when they bought it 4 years ago, we can't even build it for that price. Well, there's half the reason why, right? Like, it just blows me away, blows me away. But I love Canada. I'm not harping on that. Anyway, we're gonna do a little networking break at the moment. And when we do this is always important for me and for you. We do this for you because here tonight we are here as real estate investors. So take this little moment, introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know as a real estate investor. And then when we come back, we'll have Andrew do his little JV thing and we'll get on with the night. Okay, a couple of quick slides before we invite Ian up here. And rental rates across Canada. This is interesting. So what's the average rental rate for a one-bedroom unit across Canada? And I know this might be small, so let's brighten that up a little bit. Kingston is at number 10. The average of rent there is $1,140. Barrie at $1,300. And who wants to take a guess at what Toronto is? So Vancouver is at $2,050. So it's got to be higher than that.
22.
Someone's read the article. 2,200. It's the first time it's ever eclipsed 2,200 or at 22. That is such a huge number for a one-bedroom unit in Toronto. I do. I'm sure Andrew does. Perhaps Ian does, and probably some of you. I have mortgage payments less than that, right? Like for big buildings. Not a little one-bedroom condo unit, big buildings. That's incredible. Yeah, for sure. Downtown core. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Home ownership rates declined in Canada for the first time in 45 years. Declined by one. So in 2011, you can see it at 69%. 2016 down to 67.8%. So 1.2% less people own a home. And that could be a number of different things. And to me, some of that has to do with immigration coming to Canada. Also, though, is our home values have shot up, right? So people are looking at alternative ways to stay in houses. Top 20 cities with the highest home ownership rate. So a lot of these, almost all of these, except for maybe 2 or 3, are all Ontario. Everything from Caledon to Pickering. I'm just highlighting some. Aurora is right here, and Newmarket makes the list again right here. So, you know, looking at that, 80% of the people here in Newmarket own a home, which you can look at this two ways. That means there's such huge home ownership, I bet you, that there is a huge need for rentals, because there's not a lot of rentals based on this information, right? Now let's look at the flip side. Top 20 cities with the lowest home ownership rate. So you're going to see some of the big cities here. That's the obvious piece. So Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto's in there. The two that aren't in here, though, would be Edmonton and Calgary. They don't make this list. I didn't look to see where they were. And kind of rounding it off is Kingston, London, and Halifax, kind of the lower numbers. If you were to look at some of these cities and maybe the ones that would line up here, I bet you some of that is cities, like university cities, university towns, sorry, you know? So there, anyways, use that information, just kind of like that general knowledge piece, right? Perhaps you're looking at this, well, I don't want to go invest in one of these because there's a lot of rentals. But looking at the income rates of Toronto at $2,200, you know there's a need for it, right? So you just got to balance out that information. Okay, I'm going to end with this, because this is the big news of the summer and kind of the last couple of weeks. Trev Data Access is now being kind of, the doors are being like flown wide open, right? And to me, it doesn't matter. To me, it's happened. So we're not going to talk about why realtors think it shouldn't happen, or why the Competition Bureau thinks it should happen. Who cares? It happened. It happened, right? Or it's happening. Well, how are we in this room going to use that to our advantage? That's the question, right? That's the real question. So as an agent, I can say, you know what? It's good. Let's embrace the change. But even better than that, when I get to sit in rooms with you, in a room like this with you, and I'm sure Ian will say the same thing, we love working with investors that are sophisticated, knowledgeable, ready to take action. And this is just one more piece to that puzzle, right? It's much harder or a longer walk for us when we have to sit down with somebody that is brand new to the game. So use this information, use it wisely. Now, there's a lot of moving parts with this, because you're going to have a lot of people that just go online. So what's happening, if you're not up to date with what's going on, basically you can go on to just about any website that shares this information. You can go put in your fake name and your fake email address and get what home sold for, dating way back to who knows when, right? That's good information. We use that information, Ian and Steve and I, we use that information every day. That's how we value properties that we go look at the price or to buy or whatever the case may be. So here's my warning with that, is in here, we have a good understanding of how to analyze properties, right? The majority of people don't. So when you're talking to your neighbor and they're doing this and they're doing that, and that house, you know, that sold for $1 million, so my house is $1 million because they sold it last month. I can tell, I see it right here, $1 million. What they don't know is, or what they don't realize is, they also probably had a $100,000 renovation that they're not taking into account, right? So there's a lot of those missing pieces that people they'll just look at the numbers, because that's what people do. They just look at the numbers, right? And they'll go with that. So how are you going to use this to your advantage? That's my question to you, right? And look for opportunities. So this is a great way that you can educate yourself, especially if you're attracting joint venture capital. This is a great way for you to share some knowledge, or to have that knowledge going into a conversation, right? There's a lot of things. So the other piece I would say is, you know, a lot of people will just look at the numbers, but when you have, like, you know, agents like Steve that go and visit just about every open house there is, because he wants to walk through the house that he knows is going to sell for $800,000, because when he's at the door around the corner and we're looking to sell that house, Steve can say, I walked through that. It's not as nice as yours, right? So there's an importance of getting out to look at these homes as well. So you got to balance all that out. It's changed, so let's embrace it, but understand what that information is. And if you need help with it, reach out to one of us, for sure. Reach out to one of us, because it's a lot of info, and it's a lot of juicy info, because everybody wants to know what that house around the corner sold for. I get that. I do too, right? But when it's your business, because you're buying investment properties, you got to take another level to look at it, for sure, for sure. Are you guys happy it's there? I would be. I would be, for sure. So it's just a matter of, you know, how to understand. You got to make sure you understand what you're reading, and if you don't, reach out to any one of us, for sure, for sure. There's a lot of agents that are mad with it. There's a lot of people that are mad with it, because and I'll end with this. There's some people never want you to know what they bought that house for. But you know what? It's public information. If you really wanted it, you can go get the information anyways. In the States, they've been doing this for about 12 to 15 years. It's just part of our evolving world and everything like that. So embrace it. My question for you, or my challenge to you, is how are you going to use it in your investment world? Because I think you can stand out from the crowd with this type of information, for sure.